Hey, we're live. Here we are. it's
Again.
it's our second session here on Sunday. 3 days for 103, where the Jack Kirby Museum and Research Center, we are celebrating what would have been Jack Kirby's 103rd birthday. 3 days this weekend. Day 3, I said that already. I'm just going to keep going. And I'm Rand Hoppy. I'm the executive director of the Jack Kirby Museum.
And I'm Tom Kraft, the president of the Jack Kirby Museum, and we are with
Adam McGovern, comic writer.
Yes, and Adam has we've done lots of fun Jack Kirby related things with Adam at our pop-ups. We've done presentations with Adam. Adam, you also write the Kirby as a genre column for the TwoMorrows Kirby Collector. That's been going on for quite a while, right?
Yeah. And its longevity speaks to the enduring legacy of Kirby.
It does, yeah.
Deal with either people who emulate him or people who have taken his concepts further, and just the indelible imprint he has on people throughout the industry, including people you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Right. And I'm just going to say that we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and on Periscope through Twitter, and feel free to make comments on any of those channels. They will all get slurped into our screen here, and we will be able to see them, and we will do our best to interact with you or share comments and questions with Adam. We may end up ignoring you. I keep saying that. It's so just be nice. We'll that's what we're on.
Everybody's been nice so far, though.
It's true. So why do I keep saying it?
I don't know.
Because I'm a scoundrel of some sort or something. All right. So I'm gonna share my screen, right? And I'm gonna turn off that thing that Tom hates.
Yes, thank you.
And so where are we? All right, here we go. So Adam, you've got some pictures, and I'll just click as best I can.
Thank you. Yes. Well, as we discussed before, for people of a certain generation, if I just go boop after each slide,
right, feel free.
You're operantly conditioned to move along. Yeah, I mean. I am a writer. I don't draw, so in a visual medium. So in the same way that your speaker, Kate, yesterday did Kirby without words, this is kind of like Kirby words first, or if you will, how I learned to speak Kirby, because, he certainly influenced my writing as much as he has influenced, other people's visuals. And a lot gets said about, this, what is supposedly the stilted quality of his writing in the 70s. And I think it's the wrong model. I think that the model is not most fittingly conversation, but inscription. He is very much in the prophetic mode. This is a guy who, when he was 4 years old, had Orthodox rabbis circling his bed to exorcise the demon that had given him pneumonia. So, he was very ingrained in his culture. And we see this in this shot from The New Gods, where, this blank slate, the wall of the source has a magic godlike finger writing in flame what they are supposed to do next, and that is very much the kind of pebble thrown on the pond of existence that Kirby kind of derived his inspirations from. I think we could go on to the next one. Here we just see these two spectacular images that he did later in life, mid-70s, of Yahweh himself. I love these weird, well, you can't see my finger pointing at it, but these weird, swirly, delicate angels, spiraling out of, this sheer, nucleus of creation, and very different, for Kirby, almost like a Craig Russell, effect. Even though now that I think of it, only now looking at it, it makes me think of the more, line heavy, like rendered, Joe Simon inking style, from Kirby's days with him. We can move on to another God picture. and here he is turning away from his creation.
Yep.
Who are all cursing him for turning away.
That's right.
But it's been 5 billion years. They never call, they never write. And so this is another example. I know I've been told, probably by you, Rand, that these were one of the few pieces of his own that he kept up, displayed in his own house. Yeah. And I think Lisa, his daughter, still has them up. Yeah. And can't quite remember what's next, so let's find out together.
All right.
Yeah, more of the imprint of Judaism. Here we have the Angel of Death, who the villain Darius Drum has transformed himself into at the end of Kirby's more or less last work, Silver Star. So we see this imprint over and over again. Next, please. Yes, and here's where things converge. I mean, we have this giant hand. I was talking with Tom Scioli the other week about his graphic biography of Kirby, and and it looks like maybe he's being brought up now. Okay. I saw a stray pop-up window.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll start over from the beginning.
Okay. Look what you've done.
Here we see Arashem, the leader of the fourth host, which was in Kirby's Eternals book. The celestial gods who are coming back to judge whether their experiment, having genetically created humanity, is a success or a failure. That's right. So his thumb is up at the moment, but it might go down at any time. And I love how it's described. Engraved on his thumb is the formula for world destruction. So it's like this pissy tetragrammaton, the end of humanity. And it really kind of closes a circle between Kirby's imagery and words, I think, because it is essentially a language. It's a formula, like the anti-life equation that his villain Darkseid was after. But it's, to us, it's like this unintelligible glyph. And of course, the hand could be the hand of God. It reminds me of, the Hand of Fire illustration that Jeff Grogan did for Charles Hatfield's book. Yeah. The strand that I lost was when that pop-up came in, which I haven't forgotten, Rand. Yes, you should hang your head into. No. When I was speaking with Tom Scioli, one of the things we covered was the prominence of hands in the narrative. Kirby was famous, as in this image, for the drastically foreshortened hand coming at you, exactly just like that. And in Tom's book, we have everything from him talking about a potential romantic rival in his early 20s by saying, who was a pianist, saying, "Oh, it would be too bad if we each make our living by our hands. It would be terrible if anything happened to that." And and later, we. It has been said, and either of you two guys can confirm it, that people who watched him draw say that he often started with the hands, that kind of manual, pre-digital, not to mention, kind of do-it-yourself, hewn by no one but you ethic, I'm sure, is what Kirby got from his immigrant parents. And he also got from his immigrant parents all these references to religion that then went cosmic. I think we can look at the next one.
Sure.
Once again, I picked this one out because it always, some of the things that seem stilted, as you go through life, you realize, different threads that are going into them. Because here we have OMAC, the one-man army corps, punching 5 dudes at once, and they're like, numbers can't stop him. He's a one-man army.
That's right.
And he intones, it's the other name for OMAC. Now, this is like a celestial pronouncement of, like, I am that I am.
Yeah.
It's like, and I know that was what was coursing through Kirby's brain consciously. Who knows? But it seems kind of hard to deny that where such outbursts come from.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can go to the next. And once again, the reason I picked this one out, it's when the new gods are leaving after Scott and Varda have been joined in matrimony, and Orion's calling out to his estranged dad, "Farewell, dark side. We shall meet on the day called, quote, last battle," unquote. And Kirby as the writer was notorious for what was considered quotation mark abuse. But in more often than not, in cases like this, it almost makes me think of like something that has been filled in an untranslatable manuscript, because no doubt, the day called last battle has some multisyllabic guttural, apocalypse name. And Kirby has just, converted it for us. So, it just, and it makes you think of an ancient history, which you've never heard of, but these characters have. It's almost like, he didn't write his words so much as like he carved them into substance, what he created, almost like, the truth and death words that are carved into the forehead of the golem, and Hebraic folklore to both bring him to life and return him to dormancy. I think we can look at the next. Oh, so yeah, this is just an example of, in my own work, of how this comes out. This is a forthcoming story called "The Roses of War" from the forthcoming environmentally themed anthology from A Wave Blue World and Comic Mix called "Crisis on Our Only Earth." And here in the story I did with the artist Chase Bluestone is the nature divinity Ashira, who we see probably unreadably on most people's screens, saying, "I follow those fighting in our cause, not like the death angel to speed them to the afterverse, but instead a bearer of life, a, quote, growth bomb, unquote, to restore the shape and sustenance of those who must go on, that this universe and its destiny do as well." So, the influence is clear. And of course,
got some quotes going on. That's good to see.
Yes, Kirby nerds could unpack like 5 Easter eggs from that balloon alone. When Light Ray changes the monstrous Cthulhu thing on the glory boat into a gleaming techno
machine.
Yeah, like early iMac, type thing, which we are to understand is much better. So next one, please. Speaking of new goddesses, there were never enough in the new gods. So one that always a scene that always stuck in my mind is this one where Orion's captive mother is being led in to be among the spectators at this gladiatorial extravaganza that the evil Granny Goodness is putting on, and so we see her veiled, manacled. The guard says, "This person is high rank, but bears the status of non-being," in quotes. And then as we go on to the next one, that's okay. She reveals herself as well. We know if we read New Gods #7 who she is, because she was hauled away by her husband when his son was banished. But after one of her guards badmouths her, she goes, "That jackal barks in the safety of his pack, but the caged, quote, killer cat waits. She lives and waits for someone outside. For somewhere outside roams her own kind, her son." And then a few pages later, we see her gleefully taking advantage of some chaos to merrily murder a few of her guards. Wow. And this has only gained resonance with me over the years because this is the kind of it's so rare, at least at the time, and it's only getting less rare now to see but Kirby, it came naturally to him, this kick-ass, unbeaten middle-aged woman, as an action hero, and of course, both with Kirby and with me growing up as a Jewish boy, this is the kind of woman I recognized, just from my upbringing, and of course, reading this when I was 7 in 1972 when it came out, this was like the era of Bella Abzug in Congress and Maude on TV. So I don't think it came so naturally that I don't think I realized at the time how rare it really was. And that's okay. You can go back for a second. Yeah, and I mean of course, these days there's an eerie resonance when they call her. That's okay.
I'm
Actually,
clicking things.
That's all right. No. That's. I mean, yeah, that's fine. You can stay on that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But just for the nerds in the audience, just now when Rand exclaimed, "Oh shit," that means "Great Scott!" But nowadays there's an eerie resonance, of course, like when they refer to Tigra as a non-being, I think of like Unwomen from The Handmaid's Tale,
exactly.
and of course, Granny Goodness strikes me as an Aunt Lydia figure, right down to the perverted familial title, Aunt or Granny. So going from the strong mothers back to the sad fathers, we can do the next slide. This was Isaiah, who, as we know, becomes High Father, the peaceful patriarch of New Genesis, but this is back in his warrior days. And not just Kirby didn't only reflect back at me, the people and ideas that I was familiar with, but also, guided how the world would be defined to me. And this scene where he's, rending his garment about the carnage that he and Darkseid together have wrought, he goes, "Where is Isaiah? Not the warrior, the general, but the true servant of those he leads." That changed everything for me. Reading it, I read that and as a back issue right after we'd gotten rid of Nixon. So, this idea of being bound to and obligated to your citizens, obviously. Imprinted me for life. Same thing in the next slide for the self-definition, where Darkseid and Himon, dueling father figures for Scott-Free, are like, the young fool goes on, he struggles to rise. If he leaves Darkseid, he'll still find death. If he leaves Apocalypse, he'll find the universe. And he's like, let me be scot-free and find myself, because the young must take their own path. And once again, that incredibly this one I did read when it first came out, and it was incredibly influential, just for the uncrushed spirit for ever thereafter. And I think we can go back to the next. Okay, now this I will also switch to a screen that I have up on my end, because it's hard to read, but this is just like a reflection on something that to me was relatively new news, and that is that this was an original pitch. Here we see it inked by Jim Steranko as a tryout for Marvel, but Kirby had drawn and written this one-page pitch for what ended up being Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., back when it was titled A Man Called Death. And Death was another one of those acronyms with the periods between the letters, and I can't remember what it was for. But this to me is an example of when Kirby's often maligned writing was simply too far ahead of its time, because as I read these captions, they sound a lot more like the kind of grim badassery that would take over comics in like the late 80s, 90s, with Sin City, etc. And also speaks to like the deep, not cynicism, but the cloudier tone that Kirby's worldview took after World War II, which I know Charles and you guys were talking about yesterday, because we have let me just scroll up in my own copy. Nick once fought what he thought was a big war. He was a sergeant of the famous commando unit known as the Howlers, and scores of Nazis called him other names before they died. Then came peace and the, quote, bomb, and bigger bombs, and the bigger secret war to keep the bombs from going off. In this war, Nick is still fighting against silent but deadly enemies. So, you have this really, it's like, socio-noir, this grim view of humanity's future, and like one person standing between us and it. Also, of course, owes a little to I don't know if Kirby would have had this in mind, but And actually, you guys can help as to when this was pitched. This must have been like 66 at the latest.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, because one thing it does of its time, one thing it reminds me of is like, the tough guy speak of Wally Wood's Cannon, or especially Gil Kane's His Name is Savage. But I think they were a little beyond. I think they came out a little after, maybe 2 years after this.
Yeah, I think so.
And so I guess, well, it just shows that he does have his finger on the pulse of things. You also spoke with Charles yesterday about his stirring in trends, but it never seemed. It never seemed, mendacious to me, because it's more like, okay, reality has now given me this toolkit, and I will be reflective of that, not to mention the fact that it would always get mutated into, pure self-expression. Like,
right.
I know as a kid, maybe I was too conditioned by the way that Marvel would, never fail, never saw a trend it didn't want to exploit in the 70s,
Right.
Kung Fu, horror, etc. But when Kirby did OMAC, I thought, even as a kid, I thought, okay, this is his mutated take on like the $6 Million Man, on cyborgs. This is his Deathlock.
Yeah.
Only much handsomer, and I only realized in my adulthood, not just much handsomer, but much less redemptive.
Right. Yeah.
OMAC just exists to keep the lid on those bigger and bigger bombs, whereas Deathlock at least thinks he's going to win. He may do it by killing everybody, but so I guess we could go to the next slide.
All right.
Oh, right. Okay. So here we enter into just some of the more specific influencers, as they would say. This was the first comic I ever had published, Dr. Id, Psychologist of the Supernatural, and drawn by the inimitable, unsurpassable Paolo Leandri. And I realized not so far from the surface that what was running in my mind in the creation of Dr. Id were two things. Next slide. And that was the equally bald Dr. Jeffrey Miller, or I'm not sure he even is a doctor, from Kirby's never published True Life Divorce, who was the caring nurturer who would lead us through these stories of people just not seeing eye to eye. So it was a mixture of that and, next slide, one of the most unlikely comics ever, Psychoanalysis from EC, yes, former home of Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
So it's a Tales from the Waiting Room, I guess.
I suppose. Yeah.
But it was at least half Kirby, the inspiration for Dr. Id. One thing that that strikes me interestingly about this is that elements that Kirby was the only one doing in the 70s seem to have been rather commonplace, rather than just an idiosyncrasy of his. Like, where at the top it goes, people searching for peace of mind through ... psychoanalysis. Because he would always have that little tag, some changing tagline.
Oh yeah.
On top of the, it's like it's a sticky wicket for ... Commandy, the last boy on earth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And we have one more picture from Psychoanalysis. Same thing. He would always, Kirby was the master of the preamble. We see this caption above, the title of the first story. Okay, we can move on. Kirby's collages, always a weak spot for me, and only due to the exertions of pubs like the Kirby Collector and entities like your own museum did I come to realize that, in addition to just, psychedelically collaging in, pieces of planets and, Blender ads and stuff, to be in back of the Fantastic Four,
right.
In an alternate dimension, he did these wild, on his own quote unquote free time, did these dazzling, panoramic trips, and this was furthermost in another artist's mind, completely unexpected to me. So it was an added treat. If we go to the next slide,
all right,
from the artist Stefano Pavan, colors here by Mirko Bonotto. When we did a stage show called Funny Book, Tragic Book in Brooklyn, in the early 2010s, and this was from the funny book section, Norge the Thunderer, a Thor spoof, and here where Norge is returning to the golden, the high spires of Goldenheim, and encountering its watchmen. Stefano saw fit not only to draw these dynamic figures, but yes, to collage in this amazing, 2001 / silent running spacescape with the Magic Kingdom in the middle of it. And it was just, he did several others of those too. It's just genius work.
I think Stefano's been joining us on Facebook, I believe.
Yeah.
He said hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Stefano. Wow. I see it. Thanks for putting that up. So, okay, we can go on, I believe. Back to writing influences for myself. I mean, here's, one of the most unforgettable Kirby stories for me, from one of the least likely sources, because I was never a war comic reader as a kid. But of course, when Kirby took over the Losers, I had to give this a try. And this was from the story Mile a Minute Jones, where the Losers encounter this guy, Henry Jones, who was an analog for Jesse Owens, winning at the 1936 Olympics. And we see, we see here where he's in this, Fantasia, where he and his old rival from the Olympics meet on the battlefield, and they're like each running along the line that's like the safe walking line of a minefield. And Henry's mind goes back, and it says, for a fleeting second, Henry Jones can actually see the stadium, the other runners, that bright day in Berlin. He's passing the box where the frowning little man with the small clipped mustache eyes him like a cobra. And I realized after the fact that in a story that I did, this was actually the tragic book half, if you want to change the slide, called Underworld, with the artist Giuseppe Palumbo, in which an actually not dead Sigmund Freud gets the chance to analyze Hitler. Long story. That at one point later in the story, it wouldn't make sense out of context, so I just threw up this nicer page by Giuseppe. But later on, there's reference to like the singed and dazed little man in my on my couch, and I realized after the fact that that comes straight out of Mile a Minute Jones, calling Hitler the little man, and but that's the depth of Kirby's, he was jacked, pun intended, I guess, so far into, the id that some phrasings of his go in as if they're history rather than fiction, so, and I think we can go on. Night World is the comic that probably most people have heard of, that I did, again with Paolo Leandri and colors by Dom Regan. And this, you can tell from the Gothic imagery right away that it's most common for people to liken this to the Demon. Kirby does horror, super horror. But what fascinates me about Paolo's work, and we can go to the next slide, is that it reminds me. It makes me think almost as if this more fluid Kirby, this more sinuous Kirby, before, decades before the angular knees and square fingertips. As if that had continued to be Kirby's style, it would have evolved into Paolo's. And I think we have a Paolo example in the next slide.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You see.
Sure.
This fluid, hands coming out of the panel, crazy lines of speed in multiple arcing directions. And though I personally see, getting a deeper cut, I see a lot of Mort Meskin in Paolo's, both the faces and the action. And I have one example, two back-to-back examples coming up. Here we see some Meskin, who of course ended up working in the Simon and Kirby studio. A page, an excerpt from pages of Wildcat and The Vigilante. And I definitely see a lot of Meskin. I do in Paolo's work. This kind of fluid, artisanal treatment of action. And as an example of what I mean, we can go to the next slide. This is from an Alias the Spider story that Paolo and I did for the Next Issue project at Image.
Oh yeah.
And we see, I mean, that to me is a totally Meskin face on on the spider himself, the kind of like merry but somehow steely expression, and of course the weird fluid spiderweb panel grid. And I think and this just tickled me, I think at random, as I was researching possible images for this talk. I remembered that I mean, this is always one of my favorite full pages by Paolo, again from Dr. Id, the story called Brain Wreck, and where our hero is in the middle talking about how there's actually a lattice that connects all people's subconscious, and sometimes one spills over into the other, and like there's a villain who has managed to like drop all those walls so that we can try and like see things from each other's shoes. Wouldn't realize until after that fact that I had completely remixed the Batman theatrical movie from 1966, where like the UN delegates, get dehydrated, and then little powders, mix a little bit. So maybe now they'll see more eye to eye, because the guy in a kafia is speaking Hebrew and whatever. So the thing I found at random online was, next slide, this great Kirby from the Silver Surfer graphic novel that he did with Lee. So yeah, it was just very enlightening and entertaining to see that, and to see how Paolo both absorbed it and made it his own.
Yeah.
Which and I mean, and we can build on Kirby, we legitimately, I think, because he built in so much. Like going to the next slide, we see one of the control rooms from The Prisoner TV show of the late 60s. Yeah. And going to the next one, we see the hellishly idyllic village where it takes place. And then, of course, in very short order, I mean, adopting things almost immediately, we see Dr. Doom's control room by Kirby, even down to the egg chair that he's sitting in. And, I love that leisurely knee up on the chair.
How about that? Yeah, isn't that great?
From the factor of evil, it's like, too bad Kirby couldn't, foresee a cell phone that he could just be, laying back and chatting on, But I guess it shows how badass he is that he can even lift that armored knee,
That's right. Yeah.
So, and in the next slide, we see Kirby's view of Latveria, Doom's abode, which is very the village in terms of looking perfect. But as Reed and Johnny remark, despite the banners and the bands, the people move around like sleepwalkers. You're right, Johnny. The mood of fear and oppression is so thick and heavy you can almost touch it. Now, of course, I'm sure Kirby was able to draw on some cellular memory of pogroms and Cossacks, in imagining this. But of course, this was in the same issue as that, the same 4-issue run, in which Doom was so likened to number 2 in the village and the prisoner. So I think that influence is clear, and I think that's the end of the slide. So it's a nice little postcard.
All right, it is.
And so I don't know if any questions have come in, or if you guys would like to finally get a word in edgewise. Or
No. So what? So you have something coming out soon with stuff?
Well, the one that's coming out soon. I hope soon. It was scheduled for August, but then a minor pandemic intervened.
Yes,
it's the Crisis on Our Only Earth anthology.
Oh, right.
Edited by Joe Corallo and Molly from Comic Mix, and who put out the Mine anthology to benefit Planned Parenthood and some other, acclaimed and award-nominated collection.
Yes.
And and it'll be actually it's put together by them. It will be put out by a Wave Blue World, Tyler and Wendy Chin Tanner's company, which I'm very excited to have some work with. Joe and Molly started to hesitate to bring it out just because they didn't want it to, because it's a fundraiser for National Resources Defense Council, I believe, and they didn't want to trample on both COVID relief and police reform, racial justice fundraising.
Yes.
Now it's it's put forward a little bit. I was sad because this will be the first year in several that I haven't had at least one comic in print or on screen, as the case may be. But this ain't about me. It's about COVID. It's about the environment. And as always, above all, it's about the children.
Yeah. What was the? I distinctly remember the Aquaria Project. What? Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sorry I don't have images. Aquaria has appeared several times, 6 or 7 times, as a backup feature in Eric Larson's Savage Dragon book.
Right. Yeah.
She's your average teen mutant mermaid trying to swim against the tide of adolescence.
Yeah.
And Paolo is also the artist and co-creator of Aquaria, and the third co-creator is Dean Haspiel, who got in touch with us to do an addition to their Brooklyn verse of heroes coming out of the center of the world, Brooklyn, USA. We're hoping that, we certainly could package, the 7 stories that she's had publicly so far into, an anthology, and we'd like it to be the launch for, full-fledged miniseries because we've got a lot of ideas. Yeah. That's we'll see what direction that takes. I've been working with other artists, including a great artist named Brent Hobson, on stories for an anthology I'm working on of very far afield of Kirby, like reflections and conceptual remixes of the mythos and music of David Bowie, and we've created. We've completed one with Brett Hobson that I hope will be a good kind of proof of concept, and I'm also still trying to find a home, free to good home. Werewolves from the 1850s. It's a book called The Night Brigade I'm working on with Charles Featheroff about Florence Nightingale and Louis Pasteur trying to combat the outbreak of lycanthropy in the Crimean War that teachers never had the guts to tell you about.
All right. How about and going to the Kirby as a genre work that you've been doing? Can you bring up any real highlights from how many of those that you've done? Like what kind of comes to mind as notable points of your work there?
Oh, sure. Well, of course, Tom Scioli, the oft-mentioned Tom, is rightfully one of the the leading Kirby heirs, as is Paolo, as is Stefano Pavon, and certainly in the wheelhouse of Kirbyism. Rick Veitch, is, if I'm pronouncing his name right, the New Jack City story he did in Supreme alone with Alan Moore, because the Eric Larson spoke yesterday on this program about how his experience was saying none of the artists could get Kirby right for the world's greatest comic magazine project he did. I disagree. I thought that was immense fun and very smart, but because he was saying all they can do, you never knew what Jack was going to do next, so all you could do is riff on what you have in the record. because you don't know what he quote would have done.
Right.
But I think some people are able, and Paolo is one, Stefano is one, Tom is definitely one, and in that Supreme story, Rick was one who can, jack so much into the source of Kirby's creativity and how he formed visual thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
They can come up with something that he might have done anyway. And in terms of the people who aren't showing his direct influence, I mean, I keep a mental list of, what's my, how like on the Colbert Report used to have the, the dead to me and on notice boards.
That's right. Yes, of course.
I have like a column A of, the good and column B of the not so good in terms of how people have handled the fourth world. I think the people who have really gotten it best are definitely Gail Simone, even though, they've never turned her loose on an entire fourth world story, but just the way that she not only got Barda, but in the knockout character in Secret Six, was able to, add a character to that mythos and really kind of grasp and expand on, what the attitude of people from Apocalypse would be, was really, really a move forward. Certainly Tom King's Mr. Miracle is on the other end of the spectrum, because I like that just as much. There are various interpretations that I don't agree with in it, but it was very legitimate, and it showed just, how many strands there are to follow out of Kirby's concepts, because, Charles was on yesterday, I think, talking about how he didn't see Scott and Barda as being like callous enough to be like, bantering while they're slaughtering people. Mm-hmm. But, and indeed, especially, I don't think he was even referring to this, especially all the scenes of like Scott on the battlefield, when he's called back to New Genesis to fight against, their legions, are such a bloodbath. But, and that really took me aback at first, but then I realized, well, wait a minute, Tom has been a soldier, and he remembers that Scott was raised as a soldier. Yep. And, I mean, this could easily come back out of Scott, and in terms of the, going back to, the Judaic and biblical sources, I mean, it was straight out of like the book of Joshua, this complete over the top bloodletting, it's straight out of the book of Joshua, as he goes, around slaughtering the Canaanites, even though historians tell us that didn't actually happen. But luckily, Scott killing all those people didn't really happen either.
That's right.
And a comic book. So yeah, those are like kind of two poles of some of the my not dead to me list of fourth world creators.
So should we? I will. I'm going to admit, you seem to be like experiencing just Rand at kind of his worst during this thing, because I'm ready to try to play this gift that Paolo offered. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if the audio is going to work. So,
why don't we hang out and see? Well, I guess we'll try our best, and I can just set it up. This is the talking video, right?
Yes.
Okay. And are you, if you would be so kind as to like load into the, or I think it is letting me put stuff in chat. Paolo is going to talk us through some of his Kirby influences. Yeah. And he has some rather loud mambo playing in the background. So in case that gets hard for people, I do have a whole transcript.
Yes.
And I could dig that up and put it in the chat field if you don't have it there already.
I do. That was the offending document that was coming up in the beginning when I.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, all is forgiven. All is forgiven then.
I'm gonna fire up Paolo, and let's see. We're gonna add. I have to. Where is he? Yes. There he is. And as I said, I'm sorry. I'm not prepared to say that I have tested this and I know the audio is going to work. So
okay. All the best experiments in comics start that way.
Okay, so here we go. And there's no audio.
Oh man, why not?
Give me I will try something else. Oh, look, it's my desktop.
I do could try and do a dub.
Yeah. Let me see. Maybe something like this might work. I just kind of drop it in there, and then I turn it up. I am not hearing it at all. Why not?
Because probably the source is your microphone that you're talking into.
I
You
think
have to
you're
go
right.
under source.
I have
By
to
the way, folks, if this ends up working, thanks for everything. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Randy. and all the folks at home.
Okay, source is microphone.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Comic Legend. You have to add the source. So we won't hear you, though, probably.
That's okay.
So
I don't see it.
let me look.
There was something about sharing audio.
Do you have like built in? No, that's just a speaker.
Yeah. I'm thinking you have to select allow audio on the bottom left when you share. That's exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, thank you. I know I saw that. All right, let's try it. Let's try it again.
Okay.
I'm going to fire up my VLC. There's Paolo. Pause him for a moment. And then I'm going to, I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to stop that. And then I'm going to share screen. Share audio. That was the problem. Now, fingers crossed, folks.
In 1971,
No, it's not
I
happening.
was about
Yeah, I can hear it.
I can't.
a year old, and
But you guys
I
can
have
hear it?
seen nothing before. I mean, the figure, you can see very clear, I think, but the figure kind of jump out of the page, seems to become alive, and does not seem like a still artwork. This reminds me of an experience I had when I was a little child, 5 years old. I remember when I wake up in the morning before sunrise, I have a poster of cartoons in my room, like Sylvester the Cat, Bug Bunny, and a strange phenomenon hit me. And when I just wake up, I look at this poster in my room, and they move their leg and their arm. I can't explain it, this phenomenon, but I really see them moving. And I was thinking I must talk about this with my parents. I didn't, because I was afraid that they would take me in an institution for insane. So be silent and consider that just a weird phenomenon. And a phenomenon that I think I suffer again when I read this. And the way Jack Kirby does action for me is the thing that struck me more about Jack. For somebody else, maybe it is the big spaceship, the monumental alien city, the vision of the cosmos, etc. But for me, the way he draws the action is the thing that impressed me more. There was a time when I really tried to clonate the Kirby artwork, and after 3 years I made this attempt. I see that things does not work out. It was early 90 when I do this, and this first before this I was doing this is a book Skate. You can question about skateboard. And I was publishing this character. It's not very clear, no, but try to imagine. Called the Skyfucker. It is a skater superhero. You can see that it's not so much Kirby. There is maybe more shadow like Zincola, and there is some kinetic line like some manga, or there is a disappearing of line that it is probably inspired by Argentinian artist Brezza. And there is also some influence by Kirby, but after I do this, something happened. I received. It was 10 years that Jack Kirby was not published in Italy, and so I was like in a Kirby diet, and I decided to order from a store from Genova. I decided to order all the books that were never published in Italy, and so I have never read. After some months, I received this big box with around 70 or more books by Kirby. It was all the Demon, the Omak, Captain Victory, the Loser, etc. It was like a Kirby treatment. From that point, I decided really I want to clonate the Kirby Royer style. And as I said before, after 3 years of this crazy attempt, I realized I was going nowhere. And the funny thing is that the pencil looked right, but when I inked the panel, what in Kirby is dynamic in my work was just stiff. So I made this attempt. I make Xerox copy of the book, particularly the Demon, and I inked over the Royer inking to see if my inking was a problem, but the inking come out right. And I was also surprised how easy and natural it is to ink Kirby. I don't think you can see much from this, but well, yes. This is a panel from a Demon 1 inked by me, and one thing that surprised me is that it was much quick inking a panel of Kirby that was more detailed than mine. It was almost easy because these are all natural lines. You don't have to twist. It is like this, a very natural movement, and it is relaxing also inking Kirby. And one thing that strikes me doing this is realizing how fitting, how perfect is the composition of the panel, even in black and white without the help of the color. All the fields are completely defined. You see you have a field of the Castle, the Castle ruin, the Castle.
I'm just going to break in here for a second. Tom, can you go over into Alana's channel and just make sure that she's okay and get her ready for in about 4 minutes?
Yeah.
We've got about 7 minutes left of this, but if I can stay here with Adam until it ends, and then I'll close it off. But if you just go in and check in with Alana and make sure that's okay. All right.
Yep.
You don't have to be alone, Rand.
You see the grass, and you see how stand out all the figure him in front of the policeman, and it is all very, very clear, very readable, very easy to get. Well, I always have a feeling about Jack Kirby that his panel were bigger than the panel of the other comic book artists, even if the size of the panel was actually the same. Why they look bigger? I think it's because you see, Jack have the tendency to leave some of the figure halfway cut out. You see, the policemen or the tree, they are cut out, and look at this branch, weird branch that look like a giant spider that seems to come directly out from the border. Look, even the building is cut out. The moon is cut out halfway. What this would mean is it is like the panel is not like a cage where you have inside the element. The panel is much like a window. You can peek through. It is like you have a vision of what you don't see in the panel. So that's the reason you feel the panel is bigger, because it makes you imagine what is behind the border of the panel. I like very much also this composition and the dramatic cut of his figure. It makes you almost feel the movement that they are bringing out. And this is another example of figures that are being cut halfway out of the panel. I think this is one of the element drama that this gives to the image. It is one of the elements of the composition of Kirby that struck me more. I want to point out, with the help of this book, artist edition of Kamadi, the use of the black of Jack Kirby. He used this full black, his way of doing the shadow work. This looks like serpent, snake that crawl, black snake that crawl the pavement, in the ceiling, in the wall. Mostly they are not natural shadow, because they are not the projection of solid object, but they are more abstraction. One thing where Jack Kirby did take the idea of the use of the shadow. I think it was mostly because he was an avid movie fan, and watching the movie in black and white of the 30s or the 40s, like this, you see the shadow in the ceiling. Sometimes to obtain this effect, the director and the director of photography of this movie were using cardboard cut out with a strange shape to project shadows that were completely unnatural into the background to create an effect of anxiety, of create a mood, an atmosphere, and I think is very brilliant. The way Jack, with his style, transfer something that was taken from a photographic medium, where you don't have, when you have half tone gray and a very sophisticated lighting, he was able to transfer this into a media that was just plain black and white line. And I think the way he recreates the mood of the noir and horror expressionistic photography, cinematography, into his comics is very much brilliant, because not always you are able to transfer something from a media into another media, and I really like this aspect of the Kirby style, and I like the memory.
Hey.
Okay. Some other time, maybe we can get the treat of seeing Paolo create an entire picture, which we have footage of too.
I'll add that to YouTube or something, if that's okay.
Oh, I think so. I'll double check with them, but yeah, I'd be happy to have that in the
cool.
canon. Yes.
All right. Well,
Okay, well,
thanks so much, Adam. That was really, really great, and I'm gonna head off into the world of the next show. So
I know I can't wait for our next guest, so I will absent myself. Take care,
okay, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.